Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the podcast. And this is another amazing episode. And you are going to hear from a guest, our new co host of the podcast. So we're so stoked to hear from her. Her name is Mikiala, and she is going to talk about the student who changed everything. Actually, it's two students, and it's going to be a really great story. So let's get going. Just a reminder that this episode is brought to you by Ministry to Youth. We save youth ministry leaders time and money so you can more effectively point students to Jesus. The thing that separates our curriculum and resources from everyone else is the fact that we have bundles all the time. Different kinds, different seasonal bundles, you name it. And we also have 1-year curriculums. So a new thing that we have is children's ministry curriculum for 1st through 5th grade. So we have that as well. Check us out online at ministry2youth.com. Hello, Mikiala. So great to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Okay. So you are really doing two roles in this episode. First, you're going to be our guest, which is really
Yay.
great. And you got a couple of really good stories to share. And then also, you're our new co host of the podcast. So that's really amazing. So before we get into your story, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, great. So I was born in Chicago, and eventually my dad got a job offer to move to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and he said yes immediately. So my whole family, we got moved to Fort Lauderdale, which is where I spent the bulk of my growing up years. But 4 years ago, I moved from that area to Kansas City. So I'm back in the Midwest, and I am currently working at Resurrection United Methodist Church, which is currently the largest UMC in the country. So lots to learn, lots of challenges. But at this point, I've been a youth director for just about 10 years now. But I started working at church when I was 16 as like the church intern and then just never stopped. So here I am.
10 years, that's a decade. I mean, you're a
Yes.
veteran at this point, right?
I mean, yeah, it was bound to happen some point.
And that's great. So tell me, what was it like living in Chicago and then moving to Florida?
Well, so I was about 7 years old. So all I knew at the time was like how great the snow was and like listening to the radio for them to announce a snow day and putting on my snowsuit and all of that. On the other hand, which I do know about now, is like the bad part of the snow as an adult, which is what my father was trying to get us away from, which is like driving on ice or, like having
Yeah.
to go outside when it's below zero. Like, why does it go below zero? It's crazy. So yes, that was a learning experience for me.
So I guess you traded in snow days for beach days.
I did, and it was wonderful. But at this point, I still have family in Fort Lauderdale, and then I have family in Los Angeles. So wherever I go to visit people, there's palm trees, and I am very okay with that.
That's really great because you're kind of like geographically in two spots that are very dear to me because Fort Lauderdale is closer to my hometown of New Orleans. And
Uh,
everyone in New Orleans goes to Florida and the Panhandle and that whole area for the summertime. I mean, they all go to the beaches and everything.
as
And
they should.
LA, yeah. And then LA, I'm in San Diego, so LA is right there.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. I love it.
Yes. In fact, I almost had to drive all the way to LA last night because my 20-year-old daughter had her car towed at
No.
3 a.m. and we had
No.
a lot of drama is what happened. Big
That sounds
ordeal to deal with. And I almost had to drive there. Luckily, I didn't, but the car was towed. And, now $470 later and two $100 Uber drives there and back for my daughter, we're dealing with
but
that.
you didn't have to drive.
I didn't
So
have to drive, which is great. Yes.
a
And that's a
poor
story in
thing.
itself.
Yes. There's always a story. So.
Indeed, for sure. Okay, well, great. So let's jump into the guest portion of this episode and tell us you have a story that is our topic. And our topic is what? I already forgot our topic.
The kid who
I've been up
changed
since 3 in the
everything.
morning.
I'm sure there's a 3 a.m. story, but that's for a different time. I'll share that later.
The student who changed everything. That's what it is. Okay,
Yes,
I'll remember.
yes.
Yes.
So my story regarding that is, like I said, I had grown up in the church and I had started working as an intern at 16. But I also started volunteering at my church with the student ministry. I should have put all the dots together that meant I should be a youth director then, but I didn't. I was just living my life. And so I started serving as a small group leader within the student ministry. And I started out with a couple of kids who were in seventh grade, and I would do summer Bible studies. I would do small groups with them, and I would also do the summer camps with them because those were all my favorite memories as a youth group kid. And so the summer after I graduated college, we were taking our students to probably, I think it was like Daytona or something like that. Because in
Daytona, I've
Florida,
been there. That's a
it's
pretty
it's
nice
pretty
place.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
Especially if you're
nice.
like a NASCAR fan.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't take the kids to NASCAR, but it's a whole like vibe in the city. And in Florida, that's what they do is, you go to summer camp and you go to the beach because why would you not go to the beach for
Of
summer
course.
camp? um, so I had been working with the group of students that I had for quite some time. And so we are at this summer camp, and things had just been a little bit different for us in our church because we had had a family who had suffered a really tremendous tragedy in the congregation. And so we all wanted to surround them with love and care as much as we could. And so some of the students from this family were on this trip. And so we were all just kind of thinking, well, what's the best way that we can care for these students? And I had been building a relationship with one of the young men as a small group leader over time. And because of the tragedy that they suffered, he was just not in the mood to be at summer camp at all. And so everybody else was at the beach and they were excited, and he was just kind of sitting off to the side, not really engaging with everybody. And then there was another student who was also present, and in her family, she had been dealing with a lot of just like self image issues. And so at some point, she had shared that she was just really struggling with her identity, and she was struggling with her relationship with food and trying to figure out how she was going to get through life with all of that. And so I'm kind of pinpointing all these issues that students are dealing with. And so these two were the ones that stood out to me. So, kind of at the beginning of the week, I said, okay, how can I be the best leader possible for these two students who are in two very different worlds, experiencing two very different things? And so I really just prayed about it. And I was like, Lord, I don't know what exactly I'm supposed to do, but I'm just going to be present and try to follow God's leading. And so that was my goal at that point. And so what was really cool was God's answer to that prayer was for me to have these small moments with each of them, whether it be in small group or whether it be like as we're walking from the beach back to grab some food or something, to just really speak into their lives. And I remember specifically the one young man, he was just not in the mood to worship whenever we would gather for those moments, not really wanting to participate in conversation. But as the week progressed, he went from completely not participating at all to just worshiping freely, which is not something that he had done previously anyway, but just really having the freedom to like raise his hands in worship and not care about other people who are looking at him, and really just kind of start to become a leader that I saw had all of this potential, and then him start to pour into other students at the same time and bringing other kids along now that he felt that freedom to engage, and showing the other younger students that it's okay to worship, it's okay to be a Christian and to be cool. And then the other young lady, being able to connect her with other leaders who could help her with those specific issues because, you know, eating disorders and relationships with food, they're not really my thing, but being able to help her feel like she could trust me enough to move her to somebody that could help with those things. That week, by the end of it, was when I decided, you know what, these kids are dealing with a whole lot of things, whether it be mental health issues, grief, eating disorders, all kinds of stuff. I need to go back to school so that I can be the type of leader that I think students deserve based off of what they're dealing with. So that summer, as soon as I had graduated college, I enrolled in school again to get a master's in student ministry. And so that was really my turning point in saying, you know what? I think, even though I got a whole other degree in communications, I think the Lord wants me to really work with students. And so it was because of that week at camp, because of those encounters with those students, that the Lord showed me what my life was supposed to be. And here I am, years and years later, still at it and still trying to be the best person I can because I'm back in school again so that I can get a degree in clinical mental health counseling.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's all, it's all full circle, and
It
it's
is
all
full
still the
circle.
same, yeah, the same
Yeah.
purpose.
And
So
not only did those students have, an experience of support and love and encouragement and a moment with God, but then also like they impacted your life. And it's so
100%.
interesting because most of us as youth ministry leaders don't go into it like, oh, what can we receive? But like we're giving and we're allowing God to work through us. And in that, a lot of times these little moments happen where we are blessed and it's reciprocated back to us, which is
Yeah.
pretty amazing, you know?
Yeah.
And it can be frustrating sometimes because, we're in the grind of youth ministry and we don't really see the fruit of what we're doing. But then it's those moments at camp or, a conversation in small group, those little moments here and there where something happens, something clicks for a student. And in the meantime, we're like, oh, wow, that actually really encouraged me or
Yeah.
God spoke to me through that. So
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. And it actually reminds me, it's less of a story on my part, but it's more of an observation. I was at my first church that I was on staff at. I was there for about 10 years and eventually transitioned off of staff. And during that time, there was a fifth grader. His name was Andrew. And I just remember him like really sticking out. He started coming to our church in fifth grade, and he was at that time I was overseeing fourth through sixth grade, and then I eventually moved up to junior high, and he was always around. So I knew him in fifth grade, sixth grade. His family was very much involved in the life of our church and everything. And then through high school, he became a student leader and just always was really impressed at what God was doing in his life. And now that was like a long time ago, and he's in his early 30s, and
Yeah.
he is actually now the lead pastor at that church.
I love that.
He's the lead pastor at that church, which would have been really interesting if I was still there and then I'd have to report to him as my lead pastor.
Yeah.
But it's pretty amazing that that happened. And there's only been one other pastor that entire time. So
Wow.
the original lead pastor founded the church. He planted it years ago. And then eventually Andrew took it on. And
Way to
it's,
go, Andrew.
pretty cool. Yeah, right? I mean, so great. So great. So yeah, it's just really encouraging to know that, hey, you might have students. You never know. You never know. You never know what God is doing in students. And I know looking back on, doing youth ministry in some form since 1998, there's a lot of students that I think there's going to be a lot of fruit in their lives as adults.
Mhm.
And and then you don't necessarily see it, or you think they're going to go one path, but then they go another path. And a lot of times in my experience, it's the students that I just never thought of or never really considered that God might have a calling in ministry in their lives.
Mm.
And those are the ones that are actually out there like doing things.
I love it.
It's
So
pretty
good.
crazy. Yes. Good deal. All right. Well, thanks for being here. We're really stoked and excited to have you as our co-host. So it's really going to be a really exciting journey.
I'm
And
excited.
yeah, it's going to be good. So also you do a little speaking on the side. So if you want to just tell people about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so actually, I just came from a leadership conference that my church was having. I did a workshop to ministry leaders about caring for volunteers, but I also speak at student events like retreats and camps and all of that stuff. So if ever anybody is looking for a speaker, you can feel free to look me up. I will make sure that my email gets put in the show notes so that everybody can find that. And I'm here.
Great. Yes, awesome. One other quick note for all of you listeners. If you would like to be featured in an upcoming episode and share your story with us, you can go to ministry2youth.com/stories, because the whole idea of this podcast is that youth leaders like you would call in to share their stories. So that's the idea.
Yeah, I
And
want to
I
hear
did a
those stories,
solo. Yeah,
man.
exactly. I did a solo episode last episode, and then we got Mikiala's story in this time, but we're ready to hear from more people like you. So thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See ya.
Just a reminder that this episode is brought to you by Ministry to Youth. We save youth ministry leaders time and money so you can more effectively point students to Jesus. The thing that separates our curriculum and resources from everyone else is the fact that we have bundles all the time. different kinds, different seasonal bundles, you name it. And we also have 1-year curriculums. So a new thing that we have is children's ministry curriculum for 1st through 5th grade. So we have that as well. Check us out online at ministry2youth.com.